Betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes the deepest wound comes from the people you raised with your own hands. This is the story of a son who crossed a boundary and the painful Stoic lesson it left behind. Infidelity is never just about romance. It's about trust. And when betrayal comes from inside the home, when a son steps into a space he was never meant to cross, the pain is multiplied. This story isn't only about broken loyalty, it's about how we respond when love collides with betrayal, when family and morality clash, and when boundaries we thought were sacred are shattered. In this video, you'll hear a true story of infidelity and betrayal, and how Stoic philosophy can help us process even the deepest wounds. Because sometimes, love itself can blind us, and only wisdom can set us free. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe. This channel explores the darkest corners of love, betrayal, and psychology through the lens of Stoic philosophy. If you want clarity, strength, and wisdom in relationships, you're in the right place. 1. The story. When my son crossed a boundary. Every family is built on unspoken contracts. Fathers expect loyalty from sons, sons expect guidance from fathers, and mothers believe their children will protect what is sacred. But what happens when those invisible lines are crossed? When the betrayal doesn't come from an outsider but from the very blood you raised? This story is not just about infidelity. It is about the collapse of trust within family, the one place we believed to be unshakable. At first, it was nothing but small signs, things most people would dismiss. A glance held too long, a conversation that seemed harmless, a boundary that felt almost safe. But betrayal never begins loudly. Never. It creeps in quietly, disguised as innocence. The son began stepping into spaces that weren't his. He started testing the line between loyalty and desire. Perhaps he told himself it was nothing, just words, just curiosity. But as days turned into weeks, that line blurred, until one day, it was no longer a line at all. And then, the truth surfaced. Not because he confessed, but because betrayal has a way of revealing itself. A misplaced message, a suspicious silence, a moment of carelessness. That unveiled everything. When the father discovered what had happened, the pain was indescribable. Not only had the son acted against morality, he had disrespected the bond of family. Infidelity hurts when it comes from strangers, but when betrayal is carried out by your own blood, it cuts deeper than any blade. The wound was not only betrayal of trust in marriage, but betrayal of legacy. The father had given his son everything: guidance, sacrifice, love, and in return, the son shattered the very foundation of respect. The home became silent, but the silence was heavy. With anger. Every glance carried accusation, every word carried bitterness. The family dinners turned into battlefields of quiet stares. For the betrayed father, the question echoed endlessly. How could my own son do this? Was my guidance so weak? Or is human desire so powerful that even blood cannot stop it? Tragedy was not just in the act, it was in the erosion of identity. A father no longer knew if he was respected. A son no longer knew if he could ever be forgiven. From a Stoic perspective, this story is not only about betrayal, it is about illusion. The illusion that family cannot betray. The illusion that loyalty is permanent. The illusion that love guarantees virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, betrayal, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil." The betrayal here, as shocking as it was, confirmed this truth. Even those closest to us can fall, not because they are born evil, but because they fail to master their impulses. So the father was left with the most difficult question. Do I let this betrayal destroy me, or do I let it teach me? That is where Stoicism enters, not to erase the pain, but to reframe it. The son's act was out of the father's control. But the father's response, his dignity, his discipline, his decision not to drown in bitterness, was entirely his to command. 2. Stoic reflection. Betrayal as a teacher. When betrayal comes from outside, it hurts. But when betrayal comes from within, your own blood, your own child, it shatters. The pain is unbearable not only because of the act itself, but because of the expectations we built. We expect sons to honor fathers. We expect family to protect sacred bonds. But Stoicism reminds us, much of our suffering is not from events themselves, but from the weight of our expectations. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." This betrayal, as devastating as it was, revealed that expectations often blind us more than reality. Trust feels eternal, but it is fragile. We build it for decades, and it can break in a single act. When the son crossed that boundary, he revealed how thin the line between loyalty and desire can be. Stoicism teaches us not to see this as the end of life, but as a brutal reminder of human weakness. Epictetus explained, "When someone treats you poorly, remember, they act from their own view of good and evil. If they knew better, they would do better." The son's betrayal was not evidence that love never existed. It was evidence that discipline never took root. The betrayed father stood at a crossroads. Should he drown in anger, replaying the betrayal endlessly? Or should he turn inward and ask, "What can I control in this moment?" Stoicism answers, you cannot control betrayal. You cannot erase the act. You cannot rewrite the choice of another, but you can control your dignity in response, your words when anger tempts you to scream, your focus when grief tries to consume you, your peace which no act of betrayal has the right to steal. To the Stoic, pain is never wasted. It is a teacher, showing where illusions lived. Before, the father believed loyalty was permanent. After betrayal, he saw the truth. Permanence is an illusion. Seneca wrote, "We are always complaining that our days are few and acting as though there would be no end of them." In the same way, we treat trust as though it cannot break. But betrayal shows us that all things are fragile: love, trust, family bonds. And when we see fragility clearly, we stop clinging. We begin to live with vigilance, gratitude, and awareness. Psychologists echo the Stoics here. They explain that healing from betrayal requires reframing, shifting the meaning of the event. Instead of asking, "Why me?" the stronger question is, "What does this teach me?" This does not justify the son's betrayal, but it transforms the father's suffering into wisdom. The act remains shameful, but the response becomes noble. Imagine two fathers facing the same betrayal. Father A obsesses over the act. He replays it daily, curses his son, loses peace, and lets bitterness define his remaining life. Father B acknowledges the pain, but refuses to drown in it. He accepts what cannot be changed, forgives without forgetting, and turns the betrayal into fuel for self-mastery. Both were betrayed, but only one became stronger. That is the Stoic path. Betrayal takes something from us: trust, peace, love. But it also gives something rare: freedom. Freedom from illusion, freedom from dependency, freedom from blind expectation. In the ruins of betrayal, a man can finally see reality clearly. Humans are flawed, loyalty is fragile, and peace must come from within, not from others. This is the Stoic awakening. Betrayal hurts, but it also heals illusions. Betrayal, especially from family, feels like death. But Stoicism transforms it into a teacher. The pain is not proof of your weakness, it is proof of your humanity. The lesson is simple but brutal. Control yourself, not others. Anchor in virtue, not expectation. Betrayal is the enemy's gift. It wounds your heart, but it awakens your soul. 3. The psychology of crossing boundaries. Infidelity and betrayal are not always born from hatred. More often, they are born from weakness, temptation, and lack of discipline. When a son crosses a sacred boundary, He doesn't just break rules, he exposes a deeper truth of human psychology. Desire, when unchecked, can override duty, morality, and even blood. Understanding this isn't about justifying betrayal, it's about exposing the psychology behind it, so the wound doesn't feel like chaos, but like an event with explanation and, ultimately, a lesson. Psychologists explain that boundaries rarely shatter in one moment. They erode gradually. It begins with rationalization. It's just a conversation, nothing more. Then comes minimization. It's harmless. Everyone does this a little. Finally, justification. I deserve this. No one will know. It doesn't matter. By the time the act happens, the betrayer has already silenced the voice of conscience through layers of self-deception. In the son's case, every step across the line was a step away from duty. Each excuse chipped away at the boundary until nothing sacred remained. The Stoics warned of this thousands of years ago. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." When desire rules a man, he is no longer his own master. He is a slave to impulse. The son's betrayal was not an act of freedom, but of slavery to weakness. Here lies the paradox. He thought he was choosing pleasure, but in truth, he was surrendering his power. Modern evolutionary psychology explains why such betrayals happen. Humans are wired with competing drives, one for stability and legacy, the other for novelty and desire. Without discipline, the novelty drive wins. The result? Infidelity, betrayal, boundary breaking. But Stoicism teaches, just because a desire exists doesn't mean it should be obeyed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The son had the chance to master his desire. Instead, he let it master him. Crossing boundaries also reflects a collapse of respect for the family, for himself, and for the sacredness of loyalty. Psychologists call this moral disengagement, a process where people temporarily switch off their moral compass to justify what they want. The son disengaged from respect and convinced himself that his choice was acceptable, until the truth surfaced and shattered the illusion. Imagine two young men facing temptation. Man A flirts with the forbidden. He tells himself it's harmless, then slowly goes deeper. He betrays trust. When caught, he feels shame, but the damage is done. Man B faces the same temptation, but pauses. He reminds himself of discipline, of legacy, of respect. He resists. His conscience grows stronger, his self-mastery sharpens. Both face desire. Only one allowed psychology to slide into betrayal. Stoics saw boundaries not as cages, but as shields. Discipline protects us from regret, guilt, and destruction. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Wasting time in betrayal is the ultimate waste, because it destroys years of trust for moments of weakness. Here's the awakening. The betrayal was not just a failure of morality, it was a failure of psychology. A failure to master desire, to honor discipline, to respect boundaries. And this awakening teaches us, if we do not guard ourselves, we too can fall into the same traps. Betrayal is not their problem, it is the human problem of unchecked impulse. The psychology of crossing boundaries reveals this. Betrayal grows slowly, through excuses and rationalizations. Without discipline, even blood can betray blood. The Stoic lesson? Guard your impulses, strengthen your discipline, and remember, true. Freedom is not doing what you want, but doing what is right. Desire whispers. Discipline commands. Only one leads to honor. Point 4. What Stoicism teaches us here. Infidelity shakes the ground beneath us. When betrayal comes from a son, it feels like the universe itself has broken its laws. Yet Stoicism, forged in times of war, slavery, and loss, provides tools not to erase pain, but to transform it into strength. The Stoic question is never, why did this happen to me? But, what can I do with what has happened? This subtle shift changes suffering into self-mastery. 1. Control yourself, not others. Epictetus taught, "Some things are in our control, others not." The act of betrayal, the choice of the son, lies beyond the father's control. To fight it endlessly in the mind is to fight a ghost. What remains in the father's control? His dignity, his response, his discipline. He cannot stop betrayal from occurring, but he can stop it from owning his soul. 2. Detach from the illusion of permanence. We like to believe that family bonds are permanent, that loyalty is unshakable. Stoicism warns us, nothing external is guaranteed. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You will meet with betrayal, disloyalty, and selfishness today." By expecting imperfection, he armored his soul against shock. The father's pain came not only from betrayal, but from the illusion that it was impossible. Stoicism teaches, expect fragility, and when strength appears, treat it as a blessing, not a guarantee. Turn pain into discipline, Seneca wrote. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. The betrayal could destroy the father or discipline him. Pain becomes a forge where the man chooses whether to break or to become steel. Every sleepless night, every question of, why me, can be redirected into journaling, into training, into building a stronger sense of self. The act cannot be undone, but the energy of pain can be transformed. Guard your peace as your highest treasure. To the Stoics, peace of mind was the ultimate wealth. Betrayal tempts us to give that peace away, to hatred, to revenge, to despair. But Marcus Aurelius insisted, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." To let betrayal steal peace is to hand the betrayer victory twice, once in action, once in memory. The Stoic response is to guard peace fiercely, not by ignoring pain, but by refusing to let it poison the soul. Therapists echo these Stoic truths. Healing from betrayal involves radical acceptance, acknowledging what happened without denial. Cognitive reframing, shifting from I am broken to I am learning. Boundary reinforcement, deciding what values cannot be crossed again, into. This way, Stoicism aligns with modern science. It doesn't erase wounds, but transforms them into wisdom. Imagine two fathers betrayed in the same way. Father A allows anger to consume him. He lashes out daily, obsesses over details, and loses years of his life to bitterness. Father B faces the same betrayal but applies Stoicism. He journals, he breathes, he accepts what cannot be changed. He carries himself with dignity, even in grief. Both were betrayed. Only one grew stronger. Here's the awakening. The betrayal does not define the betrayed. It defines the betrayer. But how you respond defines you. If you allow betrayal to poison your heart, you become its slave. If you transform betrayal into discipline, you rise above it. Stoicism teaches us this. Betrayal cannot be prevented, but it can be repurposed. The wound is real, but the lesson is greater. The Stoic lesson? Control yourself, not others. Detach from illusions. Turn pain into discipline. Guard your peace. The act wounded you once. Do not let memory wound you forever. When my son crossed that boundary, I thought my life was broken forever. But Stoicism taught me, betrayal doesn't define me, it defines the betrayer. My duty is not to drown in pain, but to rise above it, to guard my peace, and to let wisdom rebuild what betrayal tried to destroy. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe betrayal from family is more painful than betrayal from outsiders? Why? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't miss my next video. When love turns into control, how to spot the shift before it's too late. Love can blind you. Philosophy can set you free.